Hello and welcome. My name is Oluseun Olayinka. I am the Executive Director at Adventure for Change, a charity here in the Waterloo Region, very niche to the north of Waterloo. I am also a PhD student at the Wilfrid Laurier University's Faculty of Social Work. That second part is very important to this conversation because one of the major areas of my research is on decolonizing leadership. I've been a student of leadership for many years, and I've learned every single thing that exists in the books, most of the things that exist in the books. And I've learned most of the things that exist in the books around leadership. As I've moved through the years, especially living in the diaspora, I began to see the conflicts that exist in some of the ways that leadership is practiced outside in the West, and some things that might be missing here and there. One of those concepts is what I'm about to share today on the issue of, one of those things is what I'm about to share today on the power of collaborative mentorship. That's not something that is often spoken about because mentorship is seen as a relationship between two people who are working together to make one person get better, that is inspired, that is challenged, that is guided. And so even my language's original meaning of mentorship is itosono, which means to guide, to lead, to channel to the right direction. And so what am I adding to that conversation, which is actually true, is ajoshe, the power of collaboration. Ajoshe is a Yoruba word. Yoruba is a language from Western Africa, from Western Nigeria. Ajoshe is a Yoruba word from Western Nigeria in Africa that means to collaborate, to work together. And so I'm adding the word collaboration to mentorship to give that little difference that produces a culturally informed style of mentorship. But let's start from a story. My life is a story of collaborative mentorship. From as early as the age of 6, I have had fathers and mentors and uncles and aunts and grandmothers and sisters guide my life. Each of them have spoken to a bit of my life one day at a time. At a time, it was someone investing in my faith, who I'm going to call UF for the sake of this conversation. At another time, it was someone guiding me to be a good daughter to my mom. At another period, it was someone focusing on my career, trying to ensure that I had the right path because of where I was coming from. Especially because I had a bachelor's in chemistry, which was a dream of my father, trying to channel me to become a medical doctor that I was never going to be. And so I needed direction on how to navigate myself back to the things I was actually passionate about. And that's where that particular mentor came in. And then there are these other mentors that guided me in my journey of deciding who I was going to marry, who I was going to date. And so the truth is that whenever I talk about mentorship, it's a very passionate topic because my life is a story of mentorship. It's a story of collaborative mentorship. I cannot situate myself and say there is only one person that has informed my life and the successes attached with it. I would always find a group of people, including when I arrived in Canada, and I understood and appreciated mentorship. I had to look for a mentor that understood the Canadian landscape. Today, that has grown to about 3 of them, who understand the culture here and the systems and what I needed to do and what I needed to do to be able to go back to the path of organizational development and training that I was so passionate about. And so my point exactly is this. Ajoshe, which is exactly where I started from, says, together, their lives we can inspire. And so I don't have to stay stuck in trying to think it's one person that I'm stuck to, when it's possible that I just share the gifts and the wisdoms and the talents that I have. And multiple people get inspired because of this. And so here's what my career mentor back home said to me By the way, that relationship I just talked about has spanned almost 20 years. At the time when I got to the crossroads, and I knew I didn't want to stay in the physical sciences, and I needed something more, a conversation led to him saying something like this: "You are already enough. What you need, you will learn along the way, and we are walking with you." That is the concept of Ajoshe. And through this one mentor who said this, I have met more people that have inspired and spoken into and impacted my life and given me direction. That's the power of Ajoshe. It's a we conversation. It's a together conversation that inspires and adds to somebody's life and makes better. For me, this was more than an advice. It was a call to leadership. And over the years, this individual has consistently called me to leadership, even when I was not sure, even when I was afraid, even when I was unsure, even when I was afraid, even when I thought I was not good enough. Mentorship that surrounded me, young, peers, older, together have made me. Here is what I'm actually trying to talk about, what I'm trying to add to. Here's what I've witnessed is often called mentorship, a transactional relationship. You have 6 months to connect once a week, to meet and talk and take notes. Mentor, you report at the end of every week what your meeting was about. Your goal is to get, for example, a job. At the end of 6 months, if you get a job, hooray, you succeeded. If you don't get a job, we'll end that relationship. So it's a goal-bound relationship. We don't meet the goal, it doesn't happen. It's individualistic. It's about me and that person. It's about what I have to offer to that person. That's what I've witnessed when it comes to this mentorship that I know in mainstream. And sometimes, or often, it is disconnected from culture and identity because it's goal-oriented. And so my additional needs might not come to the fore. My additional needs might be put aside because there's a goal. The goal is to build a house. The goal is this. And like I said at the beginning or sometime in this conversation, this isn't about right or wrong. This is about what else. And so what we're wondering is, in addition to the transactional nature of this mentorship, in addition to it being individualistic, in addition to it being disconnected, what can we add? What will make it culturally informed and make it better or more enhanced than what it is? And so I present to you Ajoshe, a culturally informed type of mentorship. This mentorship is rooted in intergenerational reciprocity. It's about what we mutually have that we can share, even as I glean from your wisdom and your expertise. It often comes with storytelling, because I'm not just being told how to do it. I am gleaning from the joys and the mistakes that you made that I can learn from. I am learning from your wealth of wisdom. I'm not being put down. I'm being encouraged. I'm being comforted. I'm being pushed because somebody did it before. And that storytelling adds because I can resonate, because it comes alive to me. There's community care and there's cultural pride in this form of mentorship. Now, somebody's going to say, is she only talking about mentors that she had back home? No. Even for the mentors that I eventually connected to, especially the first one, when I came into Canada, some of these principles showed forth that made me appreciate the concept of culturally informed mentorship. And so, first of all, there was reciprocity. That was the first thing I identified. We both always had something to give each other. And it wasn't necessarily physical things, even though gifts were exchanged as well. But beyond that, it was the joy of asking each other questions and learning from each other. There was care. I keep saying that my first garden behind my house was planted by this person, because I knew my plants from back home, but there were plants I did not know here. And so someone with the Canadian culture and understanding of Canadian plants took me into a nursery, and we got the appropriate plants, because the back of my house did not have sunlight, which would normally not be an issue where I come from. And so she came to the house and observed that my backyard was a shaded area, and so certain plants would not work in that context. And so in learning about the plants and enjoying how to actually plant and make that garden beautiful, I wasn't just learning about career paths, I was learning about weather and sunlight positioning and plants and the soil and why we need to add mulch and not the other thing. Things that are different from my culture. And so for me, the beauty of culturally informed mentorship, which I have chosen to call ajoshe, is that goes beyond a task or a goal, but at the individual, the person in the picture, the people into that conversation. And it becomes a relationship that is not just target bound, but is humanity developing. And then often this kind of mentorship gives a sense of belonging beyond guidance. And so let's pause there for a moment. Guidance remains a big part of mentorship, and nobody can take that away, because that's why the relationships are needed in the first place. But I guess what I'm saying is, in addition to guidance, there is a need and a place for the mentee to feel like they belong and to not feel like they are less than. And often, the design of mentorship programs can make somebody feel that way, can make somebody feel like you are the hero and you are the savior and you are the champion, and I am here to take and to glean. And Ajoshe is saying, we are in this together. I know this part of it is very important to me because of the next part we're going to go to, which is the grounding principles that I'm choosing to share. The first one is the popular Ubuntu that everybody now talks about. It says, I am because we are. Ubuntu recognizes that it can never be just about the mentor, and it can never be just about the mentee. That in this relationship, both parties or more bring something to the table. And that the contribution of the different mentors in the life of this mentee forms a holistic person. And that the mentee in growing has a place in the future. And that's where erasure comes in. And that's where erasure comes in. Erasure is a phrase that is synonymous with you reap what you sow. It's almost like this. Ubuntu is saying we all invest in each other so that we are all better. We inspire each other so that we can all contribute, because tomorrow there might be a need for one of us. And I'll share an example as I talk about this. This story would be about one of my mentors of many years who has invested in my life, challenged me to be a leader, pushed me on, and who at critical points, many years down the road, many years down the road, needed a support with something in North America. And all he had to do was place a call across and say, girl, like he often calls me, can you do this? Now, I had to play back many years before, when I was unsure about myself, when I didn't know what next levels would be. If this person had not invested the way he invested in my life, he couldn't have placed that call. But here's my point. At that point in time, erasure was working. He was reaping from the investments that he and many others had put in my life. And there is none of my mentors that can place the same call across to me today that I will not be jumping to support that cause, to contribute to that mission, to ensure that thing works. Why? Because previously, they have invested, even though they weren't expecting anything in return. All they wanted to do was make a life better. And so these two principles guide me when I think and talk about collaborative mentorship at Joshi. That as I put in that investment, as I spend that time, as I give that gift, as I visit, as I pray. A few years ago, my family and I lived outside of Nigeria, specifically in the United Arab Emirates. At that time, I met a young lady. At the time, she was 14 years old. And her mom wanted a relationship of some sort. And so that relationship started. And it grew and grew. And I invested a lot in that life with the support of my husband because it was collaborative, with the support of a few of my friends because it was collaborative. And almost everybody around me knows her. And I've had one input or the other in her life. 10 years after this year, 2025, my daughter, who is 18 years old, was in exactly the same position and place where this lovely lady was 10 years before at 14, and had the same questions, the same challenges, the same confusions. And I spoke to my daughter and I said, well, here's what I think you should do. But as I spoke to her, I remembered my conversation with the other lady 10 years before. And I said, wait, why am I stressing myself trying to do this conversation? This mentorship, even though it's my daughter, is beyond me. There are people that Ubuntu allows to invest in our life. And so I said, you know what, let's pause this conversation. I need to speak to Auntie this, because they all know her. She's been to our house tons of times. And so I picked my phone. And by the way, this person had to move from the UAE to Canada to school, and her mom was comfortable because she knew I was here. So she picked her phone. I picked my phone. So I picked my phone and I called and I said, guess what? Do you remember this incident? She says, yes. I said, well, my daughter is at the exact spot you were 10 years ago. Here's the phone, talk to her. I handed over the phone because they have a relationship, and I walked out of the room. That conversation sealed my challenge. What happened there is that Ubuntu of 10 years was ready to invest as Ubuntu in another child 10 years after, and I was reaping my 10 years of investment in this lovely lady. That's why these principles matter to me a lot, because I know there's always repercussion, there's always consequence, there's always something to reap. And so in culturally informed mentorship, it can't just be touch and go transactional. It must also be, I am, because we are, and I know there's something to reap in the future. So here's my conclusion on the concept of this culturally informed mentorship. This is my concept on this culturally informed mentorship. It's about mentors as cheerleaders. It's about mentorship that affirms identity. Mentorship that looks at me and says, you are good enough, you can do it, you are a champion. It's mentorship that goes behind my back and tells all the good things about me and looks at me and says, but you know there are things you can change. It's mentorship that is focused on my success. This kind of mentorship is mentorship that inspires and transforms self-perception. Because often the mentee is scared, is worried, is confused, is unsure of what tomorrow holds. The mentee just doesn't know what to do and just needs that hand to hold, or maybe sometimes the shoulder to cry on. And that's the place of this culturally informed mentorship. It doesn't just inspire, it doesn't just transform, it hits to the soul of the perception that might not be good and that the individual might be struggling with. In addition, this mentorship raises the shoulders of the mentee and deepens their voices, gives them confidence, tells them they can do it, and then slowly pushes them to go succeed, and then keeps cheering even when they are making mistakes. Because the truth about the mentees is that we look back to check if you are still there. And if it's just touch and go, then we're left hanging. But if it's just touch and go, then we're left hanging and we're unsure what to do. And finally, like I mentioned before, this mentorship enables belonging. It makes me feel like part of you, an integral contributor to you in the future, even if for now, you are the one doing all the investment. And so, it was Desmond Tutu that said, the late Desmond Tutu, that a person is a person through other persons. And so here's what I'm saying. Is anything wrong with mentorship as is? No. Then what exactly is my problem? The concept that is not just one-on-one, and is not just transactional, and is not just goal-bound, and is not just about measures and report writing. A person is a person through other persons. So let's come together. Let's collaborate. Let's raise the next generation together. Let's pour in people. Because at the end of the day, Erasure will come calling and we will reap the benefits of our investment, whether as individuals, as groups, or as a community. Thank you.